Rain fell hard that night, drumming on rooftops and echoing through the quiet streets of Maplewood, a small town where nothing bad ever seemed to happen, until now. The flashing red and blue lights painted the neat little houses in terrible colors. People stood on their porches, clutching blankets and whispering. At the end of Cedar Street, police officers were rushing in and out of a yellow house with white curtains. Inside that house, on the bedroom floor, lay Emily Dawson, the kind and cheerful kindergarten teacher everyone loved. Her best friend, Sarah Miller, stood frozen in the rain, her hand shaking. "Please tell me she's okay," she begged a police officer. But the officer just looked away. There were no words left to say. Emily was gone. What shocked everyone most was how it happened. There were no broken windows, no signs of a break-in, no robbery. Nothing was taken. But on the floor near the back door was a single muddy footprint, too large to be Emily's. And on the kitchen counter, a piece of paper with words cut out from a magazine. She shouldn't have told. No one knew what that meant. And the scariest part? No one in Maplewood had any idea who could have done it. Everyone knew everyone in town, or at least they thought they did. That was the night Maplewood changed forever. Just 2 days before the murder, the sun had shined bright over the small Iowa town. Kids rode bikes, dogs barked, and the sweet smell of apple pie drifted through the streets. Emily Dawson, 29, waved to her neighbors as she left the post office, holding a stack of letters. She was the kind of person who remembered birthdays, baked cookies for fundraisers, and stayed late after school to help kids read. But lately, people noticed she seemed worried. Sarah had asked her what was wrong during lunch at the diner that Thursday. Emily smiled and said, "It's nothing, just a silly mistake." She laughed it off, but her hands trembled as she lifted her coffee cup. That same day, a man no one recognized was seen standing by the school fence smoking a cigarette. He wore a gray jacket and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. When the janitor asked who he was, the man said nothing, just dropped the cigarette and walked away. No one thought much of it then. Friday night came. Emily hosted a small potluck at the church. Everyone said she seemed happy, laughing and telling stories. She even stayed after to help clean up. Around 8:45 p.m., she told Pastor Glenn she'd walk home since it was just 3 blocks away. The night was cool, the street lights flickered, and the town was calm. At 10:30 p.m., her neighbor Mrs. Roberts heard a scream. It was faint, almost covered by the sound of rain starting to fall. She looked out her window but saw nothing, just shadows moving under the street lamp. By morning, when Emily didn't show up for school, Sarah went to check on her. The front door was slightly open. "Emily?" she called out. No answer. She stepped inside. Everything looked normal, until she saw the coffee cup knocked over on the kitchen floor. Then, from the hallway, a shape. Sarah's heart raced as she walked closer. What she saw made her scream louder than she ever thought she could. Moments later, police cars arrived, sirens echoing through Maplewood. Neighbors gathered, whispering names and theories. Who would want to hurt Emily Dawson? Detectives searched for days. They questioned her ex-boyfriend, a local man named Mark Rivers, but his alibi checked out. They collected the muddy footprint, but there was no match in any database. They studied the note, but there were no fingerprints. Weeks passed, then months, and still, nothing. That was until one night, exactly 3 months later, Sarah got a letter in her mailbox. No return address. So just her name written in shaky handwriting. Inside was a single line, cut from a magazine just like before. "You could have been next." Her hands went cold. The room started spinning. She dropped the letter and stared at the floor, realizing something terrifying. Whoever had killed Emily was still out there, and they knew where she lived. Sarah couldn't sleep that night. Every creak in the house made her jump. The letter sat on her kitchen table, the cut-out words staring at her like eyes. "You could have been next." Her fingers shook as she called the police. Within minutes, 2 patrol cars pulled up. Officer Daniels, who'd been part of the original investigation, examined the note under a flashlight. "Same type of lettering," he said quietly. "Same glue, Same kind of paper. Sarah's voice trembled. You think it's the same person? Officer Daniels sighed. Looks that way. Detectives took the letter as evidence, promising to send it for analysis. But Sarah knew deep down that it wouldn't matter. Whoever had killed Emily was careful, too careful. They'd left no trace the first time, and this note was just another cruel message to keep everyone afraid. The next morning, the whole town was talking again. Maplewood had calmed down after Emily's murder, but now fear rushed back like a storm. People whispered in the diner, locked their doors during the day, and stopped letting their kids walk home from school. At church that Sunday, Pastor Glenn spoke softly from the pulpit. Evil visits even the quietest places, he said, his voice shaking. But we must not let fear rule us. His words sounded brave, but the look in his eyes said otherwise. After the service, Sarah noticed someone watching her from across the street, a man in a gray jacket, just like the one seen near the school months before. He stood still, half hidden behind a tree. When she blinked, he was gone. That night, Sarah went through Emily's things. After the funeral, Emily's parents had given her a box of belongings. A few books, her favorite scarf, and her diary. She'd never opened it before. Now, with trembling hands, she flipped to the last page Emily had written. The entry was dated October 11th, the day before the murder. I can't stop thinking about what I saw at school. I shouldn't have opened that door. I think someone saw me. If anything happens, it's because of what I know. Sarah gasped. What did Emily see? What door? She scanned the rest of the diary, but that was the last entry. She took the diary to Officer Daniels the next morning. He promised to look into it, but his tone didn't sound hopeful. That night, Sarah sat by her window staring at the rain. It had started to fall again, just like the night Emily died. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Stop asking questions. Her heart pounded. She dropped the phone. Someone was watching her. Someone knew she'd been reading that diary. She peeked through the blinds and froze. Across the street, under the flickering streetlight, stood the same man in the gray jacket. This time, she could see his face, or almost see it. He looked older, maybe in his 40s, with sharp cheekbones and hollow eyes. Their eyes met. He smiled. Then, slowly, he lifted his hand and pointed straight at her. Sarah stumbled back, heart hammering. She called the police again, but by the time they arrived, the man was gone. No footprints, no car, nothing. The next morning, Officer Daniels stopped by her house. We searched the area, he said. No one saw anything. Maybe it was just your nerves. Sarah snapped. I'm not imagining it. He was right there. He sent me that message. Daniels gave a small sigh. I believe you, but without proof, there's not much we can do. That night, Sarah packed a small bag and decided to stay with her parents on the other side of town. But before leaving, she walked into Emily's empty classroom. The desks were still lined up neatly, drawings still taped to the walls. On Emily's desk was something that hadn't been there before, a small envelope. Sarah's hands shook as she opened it. Inside was another note made from magazine cutouts. This one said, "You're getting close." Her heart froze. She turned to leave, but the classroom lights flickered off. A faint creak came from the hallway. She wasn't alone. Sarah froze, her breath caught in her throat. The hallway light outside flickered again. Once, twice, then went completely dark. The only sound was the soft hum of the rain hitting the school windows. She could feel her heartbeat in her ears as she whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. Just the low creak of a floorboard somewhere near the lockers. She stepped backwards slowly, gripping the envelope in her hand. Her phone's flashlight was dim, shaking in her trembling fingers. The beam caught something shiny on the floor, a small silver key lying right by the classroom door. Sarah bent down to pick it up, and that's when she heard it. A whisper, soft, right behind her. "You shouldn't have come back." Sarah spun around, but the hallway was empty. The door at the end of the corridor was swinging slightly open, as if someone had just passed through, Without thinking, she ran. Her footsteps echoed loudly, bouncing off the walls, until she burst outside into the rain-soaked parking lot. Her car was parked under a flickering street lamp. She fumbled for her keys, dropping them twice before she finally got the door open. The moment she sat down and locked the doors, she burst into tears. She didn't go home that night. She drove straight to the police station. Officer Daniels and Detective Moore sat across from her in the small, dimly lit office as she told them everything. The man in the gray jacket, the messages, the envelope, the whisper. Daniels looked tired, but concerned. "Sarah," Moore said quietly, "you said you found a key. Did you bring it?" Sarah nodded and handed it over. The detective studied it under the desk lamp. "No label, but it looks like it belongs to one of the older buildings in town." Moore frowned. "We'll check every lock until we find out where it fits." For the next few days, Sarah stayed with her parents. She barely slept. Every sound outside made her jump. Then on Thursday, she got a call from Detective Moore. "We found what the key opens," he said. "You're going to want to see this." They met at an old building near the edge of town, the abandoned community center, closed for years after a fire damaged part of it. The door creaked open as Moore turned the key, and the smell of dust and mildew filled the air. Inside, their flashlights swept across broken furniture and peeling paint. Then, in one of the back rooms, Moore stopped. "Here," he said. On the wall was a board, covered in newspaper clippings. Every single one was about Emily Dawson. Photos, articles, handwritten notes. Someone had been watching her for months before she died. In the corner was an old metal box. Inside were photos, not just of Emily, but of Sarah too, walking to work, talking on her porch, even sitting in the diner. Sarah's legs went weak. "He's been watching me." Moore nodded grimly. "And he's still out there." Then from somewhere deep inside the building came the sound of a door slamming. Both of them froze. "Who's there?" Moore shouted. His flashlight beam cut through the dust, landing on the far hallway, where the gray-jacketed man stood, motionless. He was holding something in his hand, a small knife, glinting in the light. Moore pulled his gun. "Police! Drop it!" The man didn't move. Instead, he smiled, that same unsettling smile Sarah had seen before, then bolted through the back exit. Moore chased after him, shouting for backup. Sarah stayed still, her breath ragged, clutching the photo in her hand. She could hear footsteps pounding out. Sighed, and then silence. Minutes later, Moore came back panting. "He's gone. Vanished into the woods." That night, officers searched every inch of the forest behind the community center, but found nothing. No footprints, no car, no signs of where he'd gone. Just like before, it was as if he'd disappeared into thin air. Weeks passed. The case made national news again. The Maplewood murder, killer still at large. TV crews flooded the small town, and internet sleuths tried to solve the mystery online, but no one ever found him. Sarah eventually moved away from Maplewood. She couldn't bear to stay. But sometimes, late at night, she still dreamed of the man in the gray jacket and that awful whisper behind her. 5 years later, she got a call from Detective Moore. His voice was low. "Sarah," he said, "we just found another note." Her stomach dropped. "Another one?" He hesitated before speaking again. "It was left on my car this morning. It said, 'She shouldn't have told.'" Sarah's heart turned to ice. After all those years, the nightmare wasn't over. And somewhere out there, the man in the gray jacket was still watching.